Have you ever felt like alcohol is the only thing keeping your anxiety in check? Or have you ever had one of those nights where you had to take a drink to calm your nerves? I've spent over 10,000 hours helping people with anxiety disorders, and this is one of the most common questions that comes up. Is alcohol actually helping my anxiety problem, or is it just giving my anxiety a place to hide? In this video, we're going to break down whether alcohol is short-term relief for anxiety or a long-term trap, how to know if it's a problem for you, and what to do if it is. Now, we're not doing this in the usual boring, serious, very generic, jargon-filled mental health kind of way. We're going to do this using a real-world conflict someone in our community is experiencing and use that to understand this whole issue. And we're going to run everything through this framework that you can use on your own to help you think through this issue yourself. Today's question comes from Non-Frequent Flyer, who says, I am terrified of flying. I only have to fly 2 times a year for work. It's a flight from Boston to London, so I think that's about 8 hours. I get very panicky and just want to run away. I have to take these flights, otherwise I'd have to explain to my boss why I can't, and that also freaks me out. So here we're getting an understanding of why this is important. I often ask people, how is your anxiety getting in the way of your life? What's the impairment? What's the distress? Because once we understand that, we can understand motivation. You have to have a reason to be anxious. There has to be something on the other side of that anxiety, something you're working towards, some reason why you need to learn how to deal with the situation. And for this person, it's their work and having to take these flights 2 times a year. I'm afraid I'm going to panic and it's going to be terrible. The only way I've been able to deal with it is if I have shots of Jack Daniels right before my flight at the airport bar. So this person needs to have that high dose of alcohol right before that flight to ease their anxiety. The drinks change how I feel, my anxiety declines, and I can easily fall asleep on the flight. I've done this now 4 times and it works each time, but I also wonder if this is the right way I should be dealing with this. Think about it like this. I want you to imagine that fear is like that scary music that appears when a villain pops out in the movie. Kind of like this. It's warning you of some type of danger out there in the real world. And fear is activated to help you focus in on the danger, to activate your body so you can escape that danger, so you can fight that danger, so you can freeze and not bring more attention to yourself. In some cases, tend and befriend and help other people so that you all can stay safe and work together to overcome whatever that danger might be. All anxiety is that fear activation about something that might happen in the future. For you, non-frequent flyer, you are probably anxious about something related to flying. I am not your psychologist. I am a psychologist who's sharing what I know and educating everyone as much as I can, hopefully in an interesting, entertaining way. So I don't know more information about what you're going through, and I can't diagnose you or anything like that. That would all be unethical. But the things that are running through my head here are you anxious about being enclosed in that airplane? That sounds more like agoraphobia, where you have a fear of escaping that situation. Are you anxious about turbulence? Are you anxious about being up high and looking out the window and fear of heights kind of thing? Are you anxious about losing control? Are you anxious about being separated from loved ones and being away? There's a lot of questions running through my head about what you're afraid of in this situation, but whatever it is, your body has associated this situation of flying with this fearful sound, right? So for you, this sound starts to play when you're trying to fly. This is not your fault. It is your problem, and we're going to talk about that, but it's not your fault. Some people might not hear any anxiety, any fear in this situation, but for you, it's turned up loud. It's hard to ignore, right? Gosh, that is really hard to ignore. This is how I try to get around music, John Williams music copyrights on YouTube. But you hear that music and the volume is turned up for you, likely because anxiety runs in your family. It's genetic temperament, how intensely you feel anxiety. A lot of that is genetic for you. The volume is turned up on your anxiety, maybe because it runs in your family, or maybe it's because it's what you learned in your home, in your culture, in the environment in which you were raised. Somehow your mind might have associated flying with danger. Maybe you saw some things in the news that made it hard for you to get that image of something bad happening on the airplane out of your head. Whatever it is, whether it's genetics, you're more wired for anxiety, you never really learned how to deal with flying, and you never really had to fly, so you flew later in life for the first time and it was really scary. Whatever it might be, your mind has associated this regular situation of air travel with anxiety. Not your fault, but here we are. Now, what does alcohol do? The moment that your mind is playing this dangerous sound, alcohol turns it down. It turns down that sound. Alcohol is a depressant. It sort of slows and turns off activity in certain parts of your brain. You take that drink, and it's kind of like putting on these noise canceling headphones that are dulling out a lot of the sounds going on around you. So even though that sound might be playing over here, you might not be hearing it because the alcohol, the Jack Daniels shots that you're taking, they're kind of like a noise canceling headphone that's canceling out that anxiety and making it something that you're a bit more numb to. But here's a problem with alcohol and anxiety. While at first, alcohol does turn down the volume of anxiety because of changes that are happening in your brain, the more you drink, the more likely it is that the anxiety is actually going to go up after that. It's, gosh, it's really hard to focus with that on. That's what happens with anxiety. A common problem with this rebound effect is something called hangxiety. When you drink, it does disrupt your sleep. Now, just because you are losing consciousness and your eyes are closed doesn't mean you're getting good quality of sleep. Alcohol always, always impacts your sleep. It impacts your heart rate, impacts the quality of your sleep all throughout the evening. So even though some people talk about taking a nightcap, you're not really getting that restorative sleep that you normally would get if you didn't drink alcohol. And the next day, you might experience hangxiety, where because of the depletion of GABA in your brain resulting from alcohol, because of the disruptions from sleep overnight, you might actually experience more anxiety and more stress the next day as a result of heavy drinking the night before. Now, I don't know if that's something you experience. You mentioned in your submission over here that the alcohol helps you sleep on the plane. I don't know what this is like for you, and I'm wondering if the alcohol is kinda also numbing you from most of the experience of being in the plane, but I wonder if you have to work the next day, how is that going for you, and how is it impacting you that next day, and are you able to perform? I also worry about your flight back and how soon that might be, and how much all of this might impact the jet lag that you might be experiencing, and your ability to rebound from that. So again, I have lots of questions, and those are things I want you to think about. Let's dive into the details of this and figure out, is alcohol helping you or harming you in this situation? I'm not going to take any moral positions on it. Alcohol is one of the most commonly used substances in the world. And unlike caffeine, which does enhance performances and has those benefits, or something like psilocybin, which is now being shown to be very helpful in changing long ingrained habits and behaviors. Alcohol doesn't really seem to have any benefits to you. It is at the same time one of the most commonly used substances in the world after caffeine. So I'm not going to say people should abstain from it. I'm not going to say people should use it. I want to explore using this framework what it's like for you. When you're trying to figure out, is this coping skill helping me or is it harming me? The very first thing you want to ask yourself, is it helping you to move forward? Is it helping you to move forward and get closer to the goal that you have, whatever that goal might be? In your situation, non-frequent flyer, your goal is to be able to get on that airplane, stay on that airplane, and get to your destination and then perform for work. Do whatever it is that you need to do for the work that you have. So I would say it is helping you move forward. So at first we might think, oh, yes, this is the right thing. So that means we just need to get better at using this coping skill. We want to help you level up. But I want to back it up over here a little bit. And the reason why you're reaching out for help makes me think that we need to explore some of these deeper questions and see what's going on. Because moving forward is a little bit of question mark when it comes to alcohol, because alcohol can have all these consequences down the road. The anxiety, the need to increase how much you are drinking to get the same benefit, the problem in sleep, all that sort of stuff. Is it helping you to reach your goal? Is it more of a power up, or is the alcohol more of a side quest? Is it taking you in a different direction away from your goal? And you gave this a 6 out of 7, which kind of puts it over here. So in this situation, alcohol is helping you to power up and to do the thing that you want to do. Okay, so we're not too worried about the functioning. It is helping you reduce anxiety in the moment and helping you get on the airplane. All right, let's not worry about that. But when we think on urge of, I need this is the only thing I can do to help me move forward, versus, you know what, I could live without this in this situation, you gave that a 1 out of 7, which is, I absolutely need this. Without this, I wouldn't be able to move forward. Let's look at focus. How much time, how much attention is this coping skill taking? How much of it is it distracting you that requires your attention to detail, all that sort of stuff? Is this something that takes over your attention completely and takes up a lot of time? Or is this something that actually is pretty easy, pretty automatic? It's not something you have to think about too much. And over here, you gave this a 7. So it's not really taking up much of your time at all. It's something that you can totally deal with, which makes sense to me. You're at the airport. It's not like you have to go somewhere else. There's a bar you can get to. You're just ordering some drinks. You can get through it. It's pretty easy to do. So I totally get that for you. The last one over here is access. Is this something that if you don't have access to, you feel like you'd totally fall apart? Or something on more on this end that, you know what, you'd actually be fine if you can't access it. You'd be able to find some other way to cope, some other way to move forward. And for this one, you gave it a 1, which is telling me that if you can't access this, you feel like you would fall apart. And that also makes sense to me. Sounds like if you couldn't get access to alcohol, you would not be able to get on that flight. Right now, this is working for you. It's a power up that helps you to move forward, to get on your airplane. You don't have to think much about it. It happens kind of automatically. At the same time, you feel like you really need it. And if you couldn't access it, you might fall apart. And that's where I feel like we're kind of in this unsure category where we need to get more data. It's not absolutely clear cut that you are stuck. A stuck situation would be where the coping skill is really making you stuck. You're not able to move forward, and it's actually more of a side quest that's taking away from your goals. And there we would need to experiment with other coping skills and see what is more effective for you right now. I think we're more in this yellow situation of being unsure where we need to get more data, because you're not going to be able to access alcohol in all parts of the world. There are some countries where it's just not available, or you might not have it at the airport bar. Maybe maybe your flight is delayed and the bar is closed. Now, what are you going to do? I've also worked with people who drank a lot to get on the flight, but then the flight is delayed and now they're kind of stuck and they don't, you kind of have to end up drinking more, or you're trying to get more sober and then you have more drinks. So the timing becomes really difficult and really complicated. And the more you start messing with all that stuff, the more it's going to impact your sleep and the more it's going to impact things the next day. I also am concerned about any kind of thing that can very quickly reduce your distress. Stuff like that can become much more habit forming. And stuff like that can lead to more substance struggles with substance uses. And it's not exclusive to substances. There's other things. For example, self-injury can very quickly change the way you feel and can become more habit forming. So I worry about that, and I would want to talk to you more about your relationship with alcohol and what that means to you. Given this kind of pattern over here, the other thing that alcohol can do for you, it can make it very hard for you to learn. So I've worked with a lot of people who have social anxiety and use alcohol as a way of quickly reducing their anxiety to get into the social situation they want to be in. Problem with that is when you reduce your anxiety through alcohol, remember alcohol is a depressant for your brain. It also makes it very hard for you to learn new information. So people who use alcohol to deal with social anxiety, they're less focused on what's actually happening in the social situation. Their memories might be a little bit blurred from the social event. And what their mind has learned is, again, that alcohol quickly changes your feelings. That's habit forming. And also, you're less focused, less present. It's harder for you to form the memories about how you're actually engaging with people. So, long term, your anxiety is not going to change that much. What your mind has learned is, oh, the way I deal with this is by drinking alcohol. And then the experiences you need to gain, you're never really gaining them because alcohol is sort of clouding your mind and making it harder for you to learn the information you need. If you tell me, "Hey, Dr. Elliott, these are the only flights I'm ever gonna take. I'm flying from Boston to London. I can always access alcohol. The bars are open all the time." And you also tell me that you have a pretty good relationship with alcohol. You're not really drinking much elsewhere. It's not impacting your health. Then, maybe this is a pretty flexible solution for you, and you can work on leveling up, on maybe reducing the alcohol you're drinking, hydrating more, not drinking on the airplane, stuff like that. Maybe there's ways you can level things up. But if you tell me that your relationship with alcohol isn't that great, that you are drinking a lot in other circumstances, that it is impacting your performance, all that stuff, then it sounds like it's making you a little bit more stuck, and it's time to consider some changes. If you want to reevaluate your relationship with alcohol, the thing you can do and then everyone can do is something called motivational interviewing, which comes from work that was done to help people change their relationship with smoking cigarettes and tobacco. It starts with answering this question: what do I like about alcohol? What do I like about drinking? What is it doing for me? And then write down all of those things. It makes me feel calmer. It feels good. I like the taste of these things. It's a fun social thing for me to do. It's how I connect with other people. It loosens me up. I have a lot more fun this way. Then, what are the things you like less about drinking? What are the ways in which it becomes a problem? What are the ways in which it's getting in the way of things? Well, it costs a lot of money. It makes me feel less in control. I don't like how I feel the next day. It really makes me feel groggy. I'm gaining weight from it, and that is going to help you to understand what is your relationship with alcohol right now as it relates to anxiety, and is this something that you want to explore a different way forward? Or is this something that you're stuck in? Is this something that is helping? It'll kind of help you to understand all that sort of stuff. I'm editing this video right now, and I can't believe I completely forgot to talk about the role of medications. There are so many medications available for anxiety. Many of them are able to bring down your overall levels of anxiety so you can move forward on your goals. And there are some medications that you just take as you need to deal with the high spike in anxiety. Now, these medications, often called benzodiazepines, they are very controversial among anxiety therapists because, like I said before about alcohol, anything that brings down your distress very quickly can become habit forming. And a lot of people who are prescribed this medication, they're often prescribed not by a psychiatrist, just by someone who isn't closely following the mental health stuff that someone might be dealing with. People who get access to this might start using these medications in a wide variety of situations, and then it becomes really hard to deal with anxiety in general. However, if you work with a medical provider and your anxiety is very specific to situations that don't often happen, something like a benzodiazepine might help you become more flexible and definitely much more flexible than alcohol, to be able to fly in those very specific situations where you struggle with this. Speaking of alcohol, though, benzos and alcohol do not mix. It can be very dangerous if you're having alcohol while you're having a benzo. So if this is something that you might be interested in pursuing, talk to a physician. Best situation would be to talk to a psychiatrist who has a lot of training and experience using these types of medications and understanding mental health. But you can talk to a primary care physician as well. And this might be something that could be a really good fit for you, especially much more flexible than relying on alcohol. Now, if you are feeling stuck and you want to experiment with new anxiety coping skills, you got to watch this video over here where I break down real life strategies that actually help.